Hey everybody, what's going on? Icy Cat here. Today we're going to take a look at the first of our updated operator profiles. First up is GLAZ. He's changed a lot since the game first launched, and we're going to take a closer look how next. Just like with GLAZ's original operator profile, let's begin by taking a look at the weapon loadout. He can only choose one primary weapon, and that's the OTS-03 Marksman Rifle. This is a very high damage weapon. It will do 129 with a silencer or 152 without. No matter which way you go, you're really going to have a stable 2 to 3 shot kill weapon on your hands. While you do have a damage drop-off in using the silencer, your playstyle may complement it enough that it's worth it. Furthermore, I've noticed that the flash hider doesn't always hide the flash as much as you'd think it was. I've definitely had times where I've been firing at somebody with the flash hider, and then in the kill cam I see that the muzzle flash is still occurring even though I have an attachment saying that it shouldn't. Ultimately, it's up to you which attachment you put on this gun. Given that the flash hider didn't hide the flash as well as I thought it would, and that it's so much louder without, I tend to roll with a silencer. But if you want to have maximum damage, then feel free to use it in the other configuration. He has a choice of 2 handguns for his secondary weapon. First up is the GSH-18. This is a 9mm handgun. It has moderate damage, high mobility, and pretty good ammo capacity. An interesting note here is this is the only sidearm that you can equip a recoil compensator on. Next up is the PMM handgun. This is also chambered in 9mm and yet for some reason does more damage. That higher damage does come at the cost of a lower ammo capacity. For secondary gadgets, GLAZ can take smoke. Smoke is something that can be handy as he moves from one cover point to the next, given that he's at a far out range. If you're at the distance and you find yourself engaged, smoke grenades might help you get to your next point of cover if you're under fire. Like most attackers, GLAZ can also choose the breaching charge. Switching the marksman rifle to the CQB configuration will allow you to engage up close, and the breaching charge will allow you to get into spaces where you wouldn't be able to otherwise. So what's been the big change for GLAZ? Well, back in December, this operator was really codependent on the other operators in the game to create the lines of sight for him. If you wanted to shoot through a wall or shoot through any kind of a barricade, you needed another operator to go ahead and open that up for you, or else you would run up, place your own breaching charge, and then drop back further to re-engage, then blow the charge and create your own hole. He's now been updated so that 3 shots will take out a wooden barricade just like a shotgun. However, he doesn't have the same range penalty. He can do this from across the map if he wants to. He no longer has to be tethered to another operator and depend on other people to create those holes for him. That frees up the rest of the team to coordinate their assault while GLAZ goes and does his own thing. Suddenly, the elevated areas around the exterior of the map have more use. He can also create his own murder holes. If you can open up wooden barricades at long range and engage without the need of anybody else, and now you can also open up murder holes in walls by a few well-placed shots, you are really not dependent on any other operator to help you out. As a sniper, he's a far more effective operator now. Originally, the red coating on his scope was heavier than it is now. It's been toned down, so it's more of a tint now. This does negate a little bit of the penalty between looking from inside to outside and vice versa. It doesn't completely negate the penalty, but it does do a lot to reduce the effect. One important thing to remember when sniping with GLAZ is that whatever sight you put on will also affect his primary gadget scope. So if you have the reflex sight on when you engage the sniping scope, you will have the reflex sight overlaid on top of that. If you're using just an iron sight, you'll see the iron sight post when you look through the scope. If you're using the holographic sight, you'll see that reticle imposed over your scope. So keep in mind whichever sight you choose not only affects your CQB ability when you're at closer range, but will also impact the sight you have when you use your longer range scope. When engaging his scope special ability, GLAZ is vulnerable for about 1.5 seconds or so. He has to physically grab the scope and move it into a different position. Just remember it's not an instantaneous change and you do have a little bit of delay while that animation cycles it over. You can use GLAZ in different ways depending on your playstyle. If you're more about being outside at longer range, you can definitely use him that way. If you prefer to take GLAZ inside and engage, you're going to have a lot more options available to you as you can create your own sight lines by opening up murder holes. When you use them inside, you can combine tactics like using your breaching charges along with making murder holes while placing yourself at a longer distance and really create some sight lines that you would not have been able to have achieved otherwise. A special note is that GLAZ has high penetration power in that he does really good damage when he penetrates objects, and he is the only player that can penetrate the windows on the airplane map. Using GLAZ, you can effectively lock down the entire side of this airplane. There's a few exterior platforms to do this from, but the best spot is the airplane wing. You can maneuver into a few positions on the wing and lock down a few of the windows. If the defensive objective zone is located in the press section in the rear of the plane, then you've got a pretty good lockdown on anybody in that area. None of the other characters can actually fire through the airplane windows, so this is an exclusive advantage just for GLAZ. It's a little harder to see through the windows in the daytime, but at night when the inside is lit up, this works really well. There's no operator that can really be a hard counter to GLAZ since his ability is mostly a shooting mechanic. That said, if you want to defend against him, the best way to do it is going to be to use Castle's armor panels. He won't be able to shoot through those like he can with the wooden barricades, although you could eventually shoot your way through one if you spend your entire magazine to do so. You're going to expend nearly a dozen rounds to take out one of the armor panels, so it's not very effective to do that. Still, you could finally chisel your way through one if you wanted to. Previously, my ideal operator combination was with Ash. Ash used to be the best, but now I'd really say anybody with breaching charges that can open up some holes for him would be okay, but he doesn't even really need them since he can do it on his own. GLAZ used to be somebody I would rarely pick, but now with these changes, he definitely becomes a more viable choice. You can use him to keep the enemy defensive team completely pinned down in a location. If you've got the windows locked down, you've effectively created zones that they should not try to cross, or that they have to at least crawl underneath if they want to maintain safety. Sprinting enemies may still be hard to hit if your reaction speed isn't very fast. Just because his ability is very useful at long range, don't discount him from CQB operations. Especially if you've got something equipped like a reflex sight, bringing him indoors can work very effectively. From creating his own murder holes in walls, to being able to double tap enemies quickly with moderate recoil and high accuracy, he can be very lethal in tight quarters. Just remember that he's a heavy armor character, so he's gonna have slow movement. Also, the length of his weapon will give him away. It's easy to have it poke through holes in walls, and it'll even clip geometry sometimes. And I know they said in their latest update that that doesn't happen anymore, but it does still occur. If you have a silencer on the end of the barrel, you'll also see it coming around a corner before you see the rest of them, so be aware of that if you are using them in close quarters. While you could pair GLAZ up on an assault with somebody like a shield operator, I recommend putting them in positions that oppose the rest of your fire team. That way, you've got enough stopping power from an angle where they're not paying as much attention while the rest of the team comes from another direction. That wraps up our first operator profile update. Not every operator has changed significantly since launch, but for those that have, we'll be doing updates on them, and be sure to look out for them to be coming out soon. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe to make sure that you stay up to date on all the latest news, tips, and information for Rainbow Six Siege. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you next time.